Hi everyone, it looks like our numbers are pretty stable in terms of people coming in to join the webinar, so I think we'll just get started. My name is Lindsay Chalmers, I'm the Development Manager at Community Land Scotland, and today's Meet the Pioneers session, working with young people, is one of a number of Meet the Pioneers sessions we run where we hear from the experts on any particular subject. Today we'll be hearing from Suzann Barr of Abriachan Forest Trust and Joan Lawrie of Thurso Community Development Trust. And we also have another Meet the Pioneers event next week on the 19th, where we'll be looking at marine assets. So if you're interested in pontoons, seaweed or harbours, you can join us for that. And you can also find all of our back catalogue of Meet the Pioneers sessions on our YouTube channel. So I'm just going to run you through some housekeeping information before we get started. So the session is going to run until 3 o'clock, and the presentations will be first, and then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. Please use the Q&A function to ask questions rather than using the chat. It just makes it easier for us to keep an eye on it if all the questions are in one place. Captions are available during the session, which you can access through the live transcripts button at the bottom of the screen. If you want to network with others in the session, you can use the chat button for that. My colleague Meg Tainter is doing all the technical stuff behind the scenes, so you can message her on chat if you're having any problems that you'd like some help with. So first up today, as said, we're going to hear from Suzann Barr of Abriachan Forest Trust. She is going to run us through her presentation, and then we'll move on to Joan Lawrie, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. So if you have any questions popping into your head, as you go along, feel free to put them in the Q&A. If you have a question that's for one particular person, if you just put their name on it, and I will direct the question to that person. So that's it in terms of housekeeping. I'm now going to hand you over to Suzann, who's going to tell us what they're working on at Abriachan Forest Trust. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you. So I'm Suzann Barr, and I've been with Abriachan Forest Trust since it began in the late 1990s. But this presentation is about getting youth on board and wondering why should we bother getting youth on board? Well, we do it because it's their right to play, it's their right to join others, it's their right to set up their own group, to express themselves freely, and to have their opinion taken seriously. And these are all quotes from the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. So it's important we do that. And youth participation, young people's participation can vary from being tokenistic to being real citizens. And we strive to do the real citizenship aspect of things. So what are the benefits of participating to young people? So I'm moving my screen, Meg. I think that's the next slide. So our young people, we started our youth club way back in the early 1990s, and we've gone through a couple of 3 or 4 cohorts of young people. So the first lot that were involved in the actual forest aspect had spent a lot of their time playing outdoors, playing wide games in the forest. And they've learned how to negotiate, to listen, to talk, to problem solve, to make decisions and communicate, and generally keep busy. The first lot that came through built 2 or 3 of the shelters in the forest. And the first lot actually won a prize of visiting the Maasai in Kenya to see some real roundhouses. And the boy on the right hand side of the main roundhouse picture is actually the man on the left hand side of the burnt out shell of the roundhouse that we had. We had a fire after the first lockdown finished. So the benefits of participation, they get lots of accreditation from being involved with us, which is really important. So we work with lots of local schools, older pupils, younger pupils, pupils who are maybe not attending school that are referred to us from social work or education. And we get lots of young people from the local community, but also from a much wider community of interest. They get a real sense of belonging when they come to Abriachan and come back and visit us. It gives a really positive view of themselves, increases their confidence, their enthusiasm, increases their emotional well-being, their mental health as well, improves that. So they become valued members of our community. They know it, their contributions are listened to, and acted on as soon as we can. How do we sustain their involvement? We do lots of different things to sustain their involvement. We plan with them, we hold impromptu meetings, we keep it real and responsive, we target their popular themes of the moment. So the workshops we ran are irresistible. They get to involve themselves in the games, they get to involve themselves with other groups that come out. We adapt what we do to all ages and stages of children that we work with. And we always encourage the next cohort and their helpers to be supportive of the younger cohorts. We give them credit, we publicise, we promote. So we'll move on to the next slide now, Meg, thanks. We have storytellers, we have artists in residence. The right-hand picture is Richard Bracken, who Community Land Scotland funded for a project with us last year. Storytellers, stars and stories we're doing, sculptors, creative writers. The children, the young people, we always make sure it's fun, so it's not all drudgery and work. And one of the things that Abriachan, if we move on to the next slide, Meg, please. That's the fun slide. We'll move on. We have lots of fun in Abriachan. And one of the things that we do in Abriachan is we have the children, the young people involved in the interpretation. So you can see these photos. Some of the kids were involved in the Peat Path to Fitness way back in the early 2000s. Some of the more recent works have been working on our Global Goals Trail. So we had a mosaic artist out doing mosaics with some of the groups that we come out with, and you can see there's a trail with QR codes on it, which brought us up to date and was quite enjoyable. They got credit for it. They got a bit of publicity for it. It was good for their CVs. Their confidence is built up, and they meet and greet. We record what they do. They get rewards, they get awards, and they get training and accreditation from what they do with us. And the next slide, please. One of the things that the young people from the early 90s were involved in was building our various shelters about the place. So the roundhouse, the tree houses, the shieling, the whiskey still. So they've been involved, not just building dens, but actually building structures, and us making sure that, you know, we can act on some of their suggestions when they're achievable. And if it's a funded thing, it's been able to have realistic expectations with them, so that you're not promising the earth too soon. On the next slide, please. One of the other important things, if you're wanting to engage the local authority, is catch the curriculum. So know what's happening in the curriculum, know what topics will interest teachers, so that teachers will come out and use you. Teachers will get ideas from you. So we work with all ages and stages, nurseries through primary through to secondary pupils. We do a bit of citizen science with them. So if a teacher asks us for a topic, we will organise a session on that topic with a few different proactive activities. And you also need to catch the young people's curriculum. I think this left-hand picture, that's the next one, Meg, sorry, please. Yeah, the left-hand picture is a picture of a cohort that are now probably about 30 years old, nearly, in the tree house that they helped to build, deciding where the mountain bike trails were going to go. The mountain bike trails are very, very, very popular. But they're also needing refreshed. So we're going to work with a new cohort of young people in replacing the bike trails and resurfacing the bike trails. So we need to be adaptable. We need to be flexible to the current interests and the ages and stages of the young people we work with. Maybe the next slide, please. And what we do now impacts on how these young people relate to their environment. So they become these carers of their own backyard. And we've started a nursery at early years in Abriachan, and even the little people who maybe were stamping on spiders when they first came, they're taking good care of Abriachan now. They don't stamp on spiders anymore. They realise that they need to look after their environment. And I think that's one of the benefits of getting all the engagement in the early years all the way through. And we now, if we go to the next slide, that's still more looking after the environment. The next slide, again, then and now, shows you how some of the early sort of 1999ers were our junior rangers, who are the bottom left-hand picture on the screen. And you'll see some of them in the top row, and the first two photos of the top row are some of these kids that were 8, 9 years old in 1999, and now they're over 30. They're the ones that went to Belladrum. They quite like these wee treats of going to Belladrum and doing workshops at Belladrum. They did the Millennium Forest for Scotland stamp presentation, and the next picture of the adult with the wee boy is one of the early years, the junior ranger on the right hand side of the picture above the water is the father of one of the nursery children. And what we've found is that over 12 of our nursery children are actually children of children that worked with us way back in the 1990s, which is a lovely legacy of youth involvement. And on the right hand of the screen, the little girl crouched down in the grass is actually the same little girl that's behind the badger, and she was our ranger from the Better Places Fund last year. So there's great benefits to our organisation from having young people's involvement. We have a good relationship with the young people. There's a mutual respect. And there's an improved understanding on the organisation's part of the next generation's expectations. And they come back and they've got fond memories of playing and working and volunteering and being involved in decisions of the forest. So what I would say from Abriachan is definitely get young people on board. We owe it to them greatly. And thank you. That's the end of my presentation. If anyone's got any questions or wants a list of some of the activities we've done over the years with children, I can send them that.
Thanks, Suzann. That was really inspiring, and I feel very proud of myself for not standing on a spider this morning. Next up, we've got Joan Lawrie from Thurso Community Development Trust, which is involved in a huge range of different projects, some of which involve young people. So I'm going to hand over to Joan now to talk us through what they've been working on.
Okay. So we are not quite as far on the road as Abriachan. I love the presentation from Suzann to see so much young people involved and how much they fit into the Thurso Community Development Trust. We're only just over 3 years old so far, and we have managed to do quite a significant amount within the past 3 years. But mainly that has been in the form of shaping what plans we're going to be doing, working out what community needs are. And throughout that, we've really embedded working with young people and having young people involved in all the activities that we're doing. So we work across quite a breadth of things, obviously because of the because we're looking after a town and are a town development trust. This was a little project that we did during COVID, during 2020, which was really to get family engagement and get young people engagement and to promote pride in the town. During COVID, the Highland Council, all of filled with Highland Council supplier had cancelled those orders. we were asked, could we come along with our community garden hat on and do something about the town square? For anybody that knows Thurso, knows there's quite a prominent town square on the entry into Thurso. To which we did, and we said, we're not planting flowers, we're going to plant vegetables. And that's entirely what we did with this lovely display. This actually ended up and completely filled up with stones that young people painted and wrote messages on. To be able to share within the community and create this kind of real hope in there. And we were able to do quite a lot of engagement with young people. And this is one of the younger members, but there were some slightly older ones as well, to where they sort of saw the future town and what their needs were in COVID-19 recovery. We've done lots of other projects. We have a significant degree of young people who volunteer with us. This is a lovely Ava who we worked with. She redesigned the national cycle route marker in Thurso. This was one of our very early projects and still one of my favourite ones because I walk past it most days. It's just lovely and bright, and it's just beautiful that it was a young person from the town that came up with that. Actually down the sides of the marker it says that everyone's welcome in Thurso, and that's one of the core principles that we're trying to do across the town. We find, and I'll get into more of the nitty-gritty of some of the work we're doing, it's not so warm and fuzzy, but we find significantly within Thurso that quite a lot of young people feel that they can't stay in the area, maybe because of issues to do with their identity or their sexuality. And we very much put out the message that everyone is welcome in Thurso and that we want Thurso to be seen as being incredibly inclusive, which hasn't been a culture that has maybe been felt so much across the town before. It's like we straight away, very simply, get inundated across the town, how much that we do things like that. Young people who, Jodie and Tony, who give up their time on Christmas Day every year to help cook and deliver a meal out to elderly people in the town. We've done community Christmas in Thurso for quite a number of years now, and we always have a large number of young people that come and help with it. Latterly, it has been a delivery service, and we also do an actual permanent meals service. And Jodie, who's there in the background, she's actually a young chef, but she's come over to work with us on a volunteer basis, and sometimes we manage to be able to pay her as well, but really because she believes in the values of trust, and she believes in the values of helping to look after some of the older people within the community. And she does a huge amount of work with us, working in the kitchens, and she's somebody that we are working with to take on and do this kind of really holistic development with young people who might not always have that kind of opportunities in our town. We've got lots of young people in other areas as well. We've got a community garden area, and up there we have done we've done workshops with people in the community where we've built a pizza oven, where we have done lots of other different things in the garden, building raised beds. Obviously doing the planting, we've got quite a large number of young people who come backwards and forwards quite a lot. We've also established really strong links with North Highland College. North Highland College are based in Thurso, and there's a couple of different courses that they run there. There's an access to construction, which generally takes in maybe people who have struggled a little bit in school, and it's an entry-level course. And we've worked with them to be able to do some building items up in the garden space. And where we work more predominantly is with what's called the PEP course, which is a preparatory course to take young people who have been either excluded from mainstream education, or there are students that may quite go into it. So and we work with and just give them gardening experience and growing experience, but also working on sort of emotional and social well-being as well with those young people. Similarly, we work every year with the level 1 and level 2 catering students, where we take them up to the garden. They do sessions in the garden, and then we do cooking workshops with them. We do low carbon cooking workshops with them, even to the point where they have done several events with us where we've done things like a burn supper, slightly pre-COVID, but we've managed to forge really, really good links with them, and in turn they feed back the way that they're seeing the town. But it's really, really important to us that we're just, as a development trust, even as only 3 years old, we're really just custodians for the town at the moment. It's their town in the future, and we really want young people to stay in this area. Caithness is projected to have 21% depopulation by the mid-2040s, and we can already see that, like most Highland towns, there has been the huge youth migration of young people who go to university and who don't come back. But we increasingly now that we have young people who are actually leaving the area to find work. It's not just going to college, and it's work that they could actually be doing here at hospitality and tourism, but they're actually choosing to Inverness or further afield to do it because there just feels like a kind of lack of opportunity, lack of hope, a lack of a culture that they want to have in Thurso. And we see that that's a really important thing that we need to try and change and develop and work with young people to foster across the town. One of the really things we have is with Thurso Youth Club. We have an amazingly strong relationship with Thurso Youth Club and work with them collaboratively on anything and everything you can think of, from doing workshops with them to doing specific consultation events, to doing activities, anything and everything. We key very much into the work with Thurso Youth Club. You can just see the little hashtag that's down there, which is the hashtag Youth Changes Lives. And for many of these young people, we see them day in and day out that the experience that they receive at places like Thurso Youth Club, and then by doing these type of projects with us, it really does change they're working with a group of young stories at the town and to do some more of these murals. We did this one this year for 2021. For the Year Coast and Waterways. And this is actually on the side of our public toilets, which we own and operate at Thurso Harbour. And they've done a magnificent job. We have to think that like one of the public toilets ever, and if anyone wants to come and challenge us, well, feel free. But yeah, they did an amazing job. They went out and they painted it. They had a good time doing it, and that's work that's done over 2022 to tell their stories and to tell the story they want to tell about the town, and to tell the stories that they want to tell about the future of the town as well. Most likely kind of climate action, which I'll come on to in a little bit in a moment. One of the reasons that we do this, actually the main reason that we do this, and I'm just going to come on to what we're currently working on developing and delivering, is that across Thurso, we find that there are significant issues with young people in terms of their mental health and also in terms of addiction issues. We find that there are young men in particular who are living a very excluded life from mainstream services. You can see some of the comments there. This was a consultation that I've done for the past 3 years. I revisit each of these young men and try to find out how they're getting on, and we add other people along to the story. There's about 40 of them that I regularly consult with across the town, and these are young men who are quite often sleeping on a couch somewhere, are not even claiming benefits because they don't want to be within the benefits system, and they're doing things to get by. They're quite enterprising young men in their own direction, but nevertheless they're there and they're kind of excluded. I mean, the example there is this is somebody who works within the kind of fishing industry. It's like, I'd love to be able to do more hours, but you need lots of boys to get the job done. And that means that lots of work by lots of us, and it gets done, and then we have to go home. Some days I don't get a text. Hard to plan anything because you get a text half an hour before and I just need to go to work. I ask for more hours, but get more work means we're not because of the accidents and stuff. Lost a friend at sea. And these are the kind of lives that they're leading. I can also say with all honesty that one of those young men is no longer with us. During COVID, Caithness has lost more young people to mental health and addiction than it has to the actual pandemic. We have quite a significant issue across Caithness and in Thurso. One of the solutions that we are working on to try and help tackle that is socially growing. Currently, this is a shop, which is not quite open, but this is an image of what this shop will begin to look like. This was just before Christmas when we had some open days. Socially growing is a social enterprise, which we have formed a community benefit society. We've just moved to within Thurso Town Centre, which we're currently in the process of working. The premises are 3 floors high, so we've got our offices on the 2nd floor. It's a zero waste retail shop that's down on the ground floor, which is going to be opening at the end of January. And that alongside socially growing is actually 2 businesses, the second of which is extensive council greenhouses in Thurso. If you can see on the top right, the Caithness District Council sign, which is still on the gate, it gives an indication as to how long it might have been since Highland Council did a refurbishment of greenhouses. We have the funding in place. We've got about £100,000 worth of funding to redevelop these greenhouses into a really thriving growing space. The picture in the middle is not our greenhouses, that's actually our community garden, which we were able to achieve that in 2 years. So with greenhouses being undercover, a lot of will, a lot of manpower, a lot of imagination, we are fairly confident that we can transform this aerial image here and these greenhouses here fairly quickly into a really thriving social enterprise where we'll be growing both Mediterranean plants and Mediterranean vegetables and up we shop. It's because we're in a climate emergency and our community has asked for more locally grown food, for more localism within the food chain. But actually the main reason why we're having a shop and we're having this business in this greenhouses is to solve some of the problems that there were on that first slide there. One young man I spoke to just towards the end, towards the summer of last year, just basically told me that there was just lack of hope, that there was a pervading lack of hope in the town. They're just young people who nobody wants to take a chance on because they've either got a criminal record, because they've got an addiction issue, because they've got a mental health issue, but they're also some of the best young people that you could come across. They're cutting grass, they're coaching, they're maybe doing other things. But they're really enterprising and they want to survive and they want to thrive. And that's what we'll be doing with this greenhouses and this retail premises, is giving young people the opportunity to train with us and to learn with us, to ability skills, to just being able to turn one time to going on further to climate and land-based skills, and the hope that, and enterprise skills, and the hope that we'll then be able to go and form enterprises of their own. We're in full kind of knowledge a lot of these young people will never really be able to fit in and work with an employer unless it's a very supportive employer. But they're so enterprising off their own bat. Hopefully, the hope is that they will be able to form enterprises of their own. That's what we're really looking for with social growing. That's why it's got that name, socially growing, that name really has nothing to do with vegetables that are going to be grown. It's about growing people socially and hope and giving them something that's worth staying here in the town for. We already do employ a couple of young people, actually more than a couple. We employ a few young people, both through funded positions who are working on a project, who are people that we have taken a chance on. We also have via Community Jobs Scotland, and we really see it as a core part of who we are and what we're doing, is taking young people on, employing them, giving them all of the skills that we can possibly find to encourage them and support them into a community development role. So they're not just being able to, you know, that there's the one end of the scale where they can input into a community consultation, but then there's the other end of the scale where they can actually do work and be paid for it that actually benefits their community, that they can then grow and then and develop and learn. It's I mean, it's essentially succession planning on, you know, on steroids that we're trying to do here with the young people within the town. Lastly, the next core part of that, and where we're headed to at the moment, is we are attempting to make Thurso the first net zero town in Scotland. We have a graduate who is another young person who is working with us, thanks to the Scott grad scheme, who is working with us for a year. He is currently working on assessing what all of the carbon emissions are across Thurso. And we are already engaging with young people, including working quite significantly with the Caithness Youth Council on them feeding into that strategy as to how we can try and become the first net zero town in Scotland. We feel that, again, as I said, we're just the custodians of it until they're ready to come in. We equip them with the skills and empower them with the skills to be able to take over and manage this town. This town has got such significant issues that are coming along its way. I quite often use a graphic in presentations. There was a graphic that was shared on Twitter during the height of 2020, which was kind of 3 waves coming towards us. And the first one was COVID. The second one, which was slightly larger, was Brexit. And then the next one that was just coming over the top of all of them was climate change. And I use that graphic, but I add in an additional wave, which is also the closure of Dinray. This town has survived and thrived for quite a long time on the fact that we're very close to the Dinray nuclear establishment, that's where most of our either direct or indirect employment is coming from. And it's not going to be there come the 2040s. And we need to try and thrive and survive as a town again and take in new ideas, new concepts, new things that can happen. And we really believe that working on this net zero strategy and with all of the other work that we're doing and working with young people and really giving them a say in what we're doing, you know, we really want them to shape what this town is going to be going forward, that we should have hopefully some success at that. If anybody has any questions, then happy to answer any of them.
Thanks, Joan. I think both of your presentations have just shown how important it is to work with young people and the difference it can make, not just to your organisation, but also to your whole community. So if anyone has got any questions of Joan or Suzann, please put them in the Q&A section, but I've got a big question for both of you, which I'm hoping you can answer. So we know from our membership at Community Land Scotland, lots of organisations are really interested in involving young people more, but maybe slightly nervous about it, both in terms of how much time it might take up and safeguarding issues. So I'd be interested to hear what tips you have for a community that might not have done something like this before and that is thinking about giving it a go. Can I ask that of you first, Joan?
I think one of the key things for us has definitely been building up that relationship with Thurso Youth Club, because in terms of your safeguarding, you know, all of your policies, all of the ways that you you know, where you want to provide, you want young people to be involved, but you also want to be able to support them, you know, very much in their involvement as well. That's been a really key thing for us, because it has built that relationship, and we haven't had to, you know, we have other people on hand who are experts in things like the safeguarding, to be able to deal with that. But as just really as we've kind of grown our own skills, but I mean, I would really say is that it's overcome any obstacles that there are. There's lots of help and advice out there that can help you overcome any issues that there might be. And young people have got an awful lot to give. And it is having that patience with young people sometimes, and realizing that we might be on different levels. One of the things in particular that, you know, we've had that kind of success with is really working with those young men across the town, you know, that kind of 40 of them. And that's come from really a point of going out and speaking their language. You know, when they hear me come in, or they see me come in, they just know that it's Joan, and I'm just going to be, what's the crack, what's going on, and we're just going to have that really informal conversation and really be on their level, because they are people who have been really abandoned by a lot of services, but also are the most honest people that will be so incredibly honest about their lives and what's going on in their lives. And I just think it's just worth really putting in some of that time and thinking about how you can speak and how you can connect to them, how you can do, whether it's an event or an activity, whether you can partner with another organisation that can support you in that journey. But it's, you know, when we are all, you know, hanging up our hats and retiring, it's those young people that we're going to be expecting to be development officers in our communities and doing all of those things. So invest in them now.
Thanks, Joan. Can I ask the same question of you, Suzann?
Yeah, I think patience is probably something things don't happen yesterday, and young people expect things to happen yesterday. I think that's probably something that we've learned over the years, in that in the early days, it was definitely local young people. We're a small community, and it was local young people that were involved in playing wide games and doing projects and going on trips and doing a bit of charity work and doing a bit of conservation work. But I think the way it's evolved over the years with us is that we've now got these wider communities of interest. So we work with young people who aren't coping with school. That's where I was this morning, working with, you know, young people that have got a very small timetable in school, and adapting what we do to suit different cohorts, different groups, different individuals. And yes, being patient, you know, assure them that things won't happen straight away. I mean, we've been going for nearly 24 years, and it's taken a while to get things going, but we've had an underlying current of different activities, different workshops, different interests served as the years have gone by. So I think don't panic. Get them involved, get the group that are interested in you involved, and then the jungle drums will work, and that'll spread out. And it's the same with working with the local authority. You know, if you're providing a good service, the local authority will use you. And I think that's the sort of, from the safeguarding point of view, there's, as Joan said, plenty of advice out there to make sure that you are doing safe. You're working with young people safely. Lots of good advice out there, and templates to use. And Highland Council have a very good child protection team with Cala, where there's lots of advice comes from there too.
Thanks, Suzann. I've got another question for you. It sounds like your work with young people for both organisations is really central to what you do, and it's really changed your own thoughts about the future. So I was wondering, you know, has it, from your point of view, do you think working with young people has kind of changed the direction of your organisation and maybe the direction of your village and town as well? Can I ask that of you first, Suzann?
I think we are we're not far from Inverness, so we're a rural location, but not far from Inverness, which is kind of an anomaly, you know. I think from my personal point of view, it hasn't changed. I've always been involved with young people, so I haven't been feared about that, you know, from way back. But I mean, from the community point of view, I think it's really, really important that we bend over backwards as a community to make it easier for young people to find housing, to find jobs in the local area. I mean, we do have to work harder at that. We haven't got quite the issues that the Caithness have, but I think it hasn't changed me personally. I think as an organisation, we've taken on board some much younger directors recently, which has been great. So it's not all the old grizzled grey heads that are. The average age of our board has probably halved in the last few years, but we've always had them involved. We don't bore them with boring meetings. But we give them the opportunity to speak to us. And I mean, today I've got an email from one of our young people wanting to volunteer, you know, as part of her life progression. And I'm thinking that's brilliant. You know, she was just a wee toot at the very beginning, and here she is wanting to come and volunteer, which is lovely. So it hasn't changed my opinion personally, but I think as a community we need to be more proactive in providing employment and routes for young folk that might move away.
Thanks, Suzann. I can ask the same question of you, Joan. It sounds like you're making a big difference to the future of Thurso. How has your thinking changed over the lifetime of the project?
I think probably our thinking has changed from, we always wanted to very much create opportunities for young people. I'm very, very big on the, you know, learning community development, and I always wanted to be able to offer roles in community development, and to take people on that kind of journey, and particularly young people to take them on that journey. But I think we thought possibly when we started out that that was some kind of just succession planning, it would be great if we could employ some young people at some stage. I don't think that we necessarily thought that we were going to have to provide whole-scale employment and training opportunities, because we really thought that they were out there within the community. You know, we have North Highland College here, and there are opportunities to train and to learn, but I don't think that we ever thought that there was as many people who really felt excluded as what there is across the town. And certainly in the sort of 3.5 years that we've been on the go, the issues in terms of mental health and addiction have got significantly worse. And so now it's more of we've got time to do this. We've got lots of time to do this. And now it feels like it's much more of a race that we need to do this, that we really need to be valuing sort of every young person that's in the community, and really trying to give them not just a voice, but really to give them some value. That I mean, one of the more simpler versions of that is that when you live in a town, I mean, it can happen in rural areas as well, but when you live in a town, any instance of vandalism all over social media, that's the young people that have done that. That's terrible. And we actively go out and try and combat that. We've, you know, helped Thurso Youth Club to be able to get funding, which is another part of our role as a kind of community anchor organisation, so that they can get youth street workers on the go, so that they can be out speaking to young people and they can be out engaging with them. Those young people that painted that mural on the side of that toilet, a lot of them were actually ones that have caused vandalism down at Thurso Harbour before, that we've worked with and spoken to and tried to do different things with them, and get them involved. And they're like changed kids now. But I think really what we're having to do is the bit that we didn't expect was that we're just have to accelerate that work, because there are so many young people that are just leaving the area now. And it's not that we don't have houses, because we have houses. So yeah.
Thanks, Joan, that's brilliant. I've got a question from Keris Goff. If you can answer this, I'll ask it of you first, Joan. So Keris is a young person from a rural community who recently moved to a city to study at university. She's really interested in community ownership and community-led regeneration and environmental and climate activism. She's wondering how, as a young person, she could help her community back home to support itself while engaging with youth to tackle environmental issues. How can the solutions to struggling rural communities and climate change interlink? Well, there's a big question for you, Joan. What are your thoughts about that?
That's a big question. Well, I most definitely feel that issues that we experience within our communities, whether they're actually rural or urban, particularly in terms of issues around inequalities, housing, transport, a lot of those can be solved by climate action projects, and by having climate action embedded in the work of what an organisation is doing within their community. And in terms of that, you know, if it's helping a community back home remotely, then there is significant lots of work that could be done to help. You know, we're working on our kind of net zero strategy, which is, I mean, we're fortunate we have a graduate. If we weren't able to get that graduate in place, we'd be looking for a young person that has that kind of skills. One of the things that we saw very clearly actually when we interviewed for that graduate was the number of young people. We had quite a high number of applications for that job, all of which were from people who young people who had gone to university, had left here to go to university, and never ever expected to see a job opportunity like that back here in Thurso. And that in itself, I think, says something. We've had the similar for other positions that we've had available. We also operate we're one of the organisations that's operating one of the first regional climate action hubs on behalf of the Scottish Government. So we're operating the one for North Highlands and the Northern Isles, and Aberdeen Climate Action are operating the first one for Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire as a pilot. And again, us being able to offer those jobs out attracted a high number of young people to apply to them who wanted to be able to return to this area. So I think if there's anything that you can do to influence local communities to be able to try and create those kind of opportunities and that green recovery, even if it's just, you know, lobbying, using your vote, whatever it is, to try and get more positions available in green recovery and a just transition, then that is helpful in itself, because there are young people who want to be able to return to their areas and want to have that kind of quality opportunities, and the issues that are really affecting them and impacting on them, and that are terrifying to a lot of young people, because what planet are we leaving behind for them?
Thanks, Joan. Can I ask that question to you as well, Suzann?
That was a very long question. I'll answer what I can remember of it. But I think from our point of view, I think the easiest way for us to do it in a wider sphere than our own small community is link up with education, link up with what they're learning in school, you know, hit the curriculum, as I said in the presentation, make sure that you're offering information, offering hands-on activities to actually, you know, change mindsets and show the next generation and the old generation that you know, there's lots of things we can be doing practically to combat climate change. So I think I would from our small point of view, I would be linking with education, and that's kind of what we do. You know, with the Global Goals Trail, we invite school groups out to do that, and then go back to do hands-on projects in their school and hands-on projects within their community. So that's kind of the sort of more practical way that we are addressing that issue.
Thanks, Suzann. I don't think we've got any more questions coming in. Just check the chat as well. No, I think that's us. So thank you to both of you for really powerful presentations. I, for one, will be sending the link out to lots of people once this goes up on our YouTube site, because I think both your presentations are really fascinating and informative. So thanks again. And just a reminder to anyone who might be interested in our Marine Meet the Pioneers, that is happening on January the 19th, and you can book for that through our website. Thank you.